Yes, the answer is obviously yes. I'm not saying they shouldn't. However, I have thoughts and feelings about this matter that I need to externalize, which is always something you want someone on the internet to say or do. This was a clickbaity title, I know, but titling it Non-Evoker Dracthyr Should Be Able to Fly and Not in the Mount kind of way is not an enticing title. Wait, don't go. For those unaware, Mr. GM made a post on twitter.com.net.gov on April 17, 2024, following an interview with Ian Hazzikostas. Mr. Hazzikostas stated that Dracthyr could play as other classes whenever in Early War Within, which is crazy because that's not too far off, especially when I keep making this video off and recording this voiceover on the day the pre-patch came out. I think that Dracthyr should be allowed to play as classes other than Evoker. Especially in this era of letting every race play every class, this is definitely the time to do that. But there's this little thing in the back of my head that's afraid that the first winged playable race is going to have their wings clipped if they're not Evoker. Let me explain. The Dracthyr racials are Glide, Soar, Tailswipe, and Wing Buffet. The latter two being evocative of iconic WoW dragon abilities, and 3 of them relate to the wings on a Dracthyr's back. Glide is a slow fall that can be controlled, but Demon Hunters did it first. Soar is dragon riding, or sky riding, without a mount, but you can only use it outdoors and in the Nikud Offensive dungeon. And Wing Buffet is a knockback that I'm sure plenty of you remember that you have. So what's the problem, you might be wondering? You have all the basics of a dragon person, and you can fly. Well, yes, but there is more. Exclusive to the Evoker class are the abilities Hover, Verdant Embrace, Zephyr, and Rescue, with the latter 3 being specific to the shared Evoker talent tree. I, personally, feel that these abilities evoke, more of the fantasy of a winged character due to their nature of involving the character's wings. If my character has wings, I want to use those wings as often as possible. I'm just a huge sucker for characters in media with wings. Wings are cool. And I'm sure some Demon Hunter players feel the exact same way. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about my beloved baby Scalies. If you haven't caught on yet, or my writing and speaking abilities thus far have been incoherent, my thesis statement is such. I think the Evoker abilities Hover, Verdant Embrace, Rescue, and Zephyr should become Dracthyr racial abilities. The former 3 I would die without, and the latter I could live without. Let's start with Hover. I love Hover. To me, Hover is the most fundamental ability for Dracthyr. It's incredibly immersive. Instead of using magic to move around quickly, they're just using themselves. They have wings, they're gonna use them. This is the wing fantasy. I don't know about you, but if I had wings, I'd be hovering all the damn time. Now, it does let them cast other abilities while moving, but this isn't the first iteration of that. Shamans currently have access to Spirit Walker's Grace. There have also been other now removed abilities like Hunter's Aspect of the Fox and Druid Symbiosis specifically used on a shaman that granted them Spirit Walker's Grace. Spirit Walker's Grace lasts 15 seconds and has a 1.5 minute cooldown. Hover only lasts for 6 seconds with a 30-second recharge. Most importantly, the tooltip very specifically says allows Evoker spells to be cast while moving, does not affect empowered spells. Perhaps as a compromise, only Evokers can benefit from the casting while moving aspect. Another thing is that if it becomes a racial ability, it wouldn't be the only movement-based racial ability. Worgen have the racial Dark Flight, which grants them 40% movement speed for 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Considering that active racial abilities typically have cooldowns of 2 minutes or longer, I think the cooldown could be brought up from 30 seconds, giving the 30 seconds to Evokers only. Verdant Embrace is both a heal and a movement ability. And I know what you're thinking. It says green on it, and you can cast it on yourself. Okay, maybe you weren't thinking that, but I was. The whole casting it on yourself thing is whatever. It's just like the Draenei racial Gift of the Naru. It's a heal. Big deal. Now the green thing has to do with it being a green dragonflight ability. Remember, Dracthyr, and therefore Evokers, are science experiment super soldiers made with the combined magics of all 5 dragonflights. You can take the super soldier out of the Dracthyr, but you can't take the Dracthyr out of the super soldier. Or something. Why not have a vestigial part of who the dracthyr are from a narrative point of view, or even something as benign as a self-heal from a gameplay point of view? One could argue, though, that all evoker abilities are baked into who the dracthyr are as individuals because they are the magics of the 5 dragonflights coalesced into one super soldier, and therefore should have all evoker abilities as any class. Who's arguing this? No one. It's me. I'm exaggerating hypotheticals. And, well, sure, but World of Warcraft is a video game, and video games need limitations. And adding 4 active racial abilities to a race that already has 4 for a total of 8 is definitely the opposite of a limitation. I know that. I wrote it. But you can't give me a winged playable race and then tell me I can only fly sometimes. Wow. I feel so immersed. I would rather be forced to watch an unskippable in-game cinematic when I log onto my dracthyr of her being held down against her will while her wings are cut off with a dull kitchen cleaver. This, of course, would be happening in the barbershop. Business as usual. At least then I would actually feel immersed. But you can make me feel equally as immersed by just making Verdant Embrace's cooldown longer for non-evokers. Bam. Class design. This game developer thing is easy. They should hire me. On second thought, maybe not. I don't think I want to work for Blizzard. You know. Rescue is an ability you can rescue or murder your friends with. I really wish I had this moment I'm thinking of recorded or clipped, but alas. My guild was doing an optional heroic night back in Aberys, and I brought my evoker, and so did one of the other healers. We got to the experiments boss, the 3rd boss comes out, and he starts to do his strafing run mechanic. I run out of the way, and all of a sudden I am sailing back into the line of fire, and both I and the other healer die. It was the funniest thing he ever did to me because up until that point I thought he was kind of stuck up and unsociable, but after that I realized he's a goofball. That's stuck up and unsociable. Milk, if you're watching this, I love you. As a friend, of course. Anyway, rescue is certainly an ability. With great power comes great responsibility, or something. On one hand, executed well, abilities that move other players around are perfectly fine, and most of the time, I don't think people even use them. Show of hands, who has forgotten that they have an ability, especially on an alt as a one-trick pony. On the other hand, people could use it maliciously, because of course they will. Using it maliciously on one of your friends to be obnoxious on purpose is one thing, and using it maliciously on a stranger is kind of a faux pas. You don't know how they're going to react, and also don't be shitty to strangers. The argument against rescue is probably that giving it to every dracthyr is a bad idea because they all have the potential to use it maliciously, which I believe is called a stereotype. But you know who else has the potential to use an ability that moves other players around maliciously? Literally everyone. You too can be obnoxious to strangers on the internet if you level up engineering and get a nifty item called the Swap Blaster. But what's this? On the other side of the ring, it's the Neural Silencer! It makes you immune to some annoyances including Leap of Faith, threat redirecting abilities, and some gadgets like the Swap Blaster. Persist through death, last 12 hours. It's almost as if they thought about this being a problem. You aren't even allowed to use any of these types of abilities on people not actively in a group with you. They definitely already thought about this. Oh, and by the way, the Neural Silencer already works for rescue. Now, Zephyr is more of a raid cooldown ability. It's at the very bottom of the shared evoker tree, it has a 3-minute cooldown, and most importantly, it reduces damage from AoEs. I only included it because you use your wings to conjure an updraft to lift you and your 4 nearest allies within 20 yards into the air. Remember wing fantasy. But it does have the damage reduction, which sets it apart from the other 3. I think this one is okay not becoming a racial. Let's say these abilities don't become racials, and let's be honest, they probably won't. What is the in-game lore explanation for why non-evoker dracthyr have forgotten to use their wings in certain ways? If my super soldier decides to become a scaly of the cloth, perhaps you could argue that in their priestliness they decided to give up certain kinds of flying in service of their faith. It would be like the penitent one from the Blasphemous duology. or real religious people from real life. He's a silent protagonist, but it makes in-universe sense because he took a vow of silence. He is the penitent one in silence. However, this would require World of Warcraft to have interesting class-race interactions on a narrative level, which are virtually non-existent outside of hero class starting zones, but also they just don't exist. In the Death Knight starting zone, there's that one quest where you have to kill an NPC of your character's race, because at that point you're still a minion of the Lich King. This NPC is supposed to know your character, and so their dialogue is all about how this isn't you gotta snap out of it and whatnot. But that's about it. Each of the races interact with the player character differently, but that's it. You kill the NPC and you move on with the starting zone. I digress. So if you play as a dracthyr priest, you could, for roleplay's sake, say that your dracthyr decided not to fly for humility and whatever. But what if you're not playing as a dracthyr priest? What if you're playing as a dracthyr warrior? Did they just forget? In their effort to change from super soldier to weapons master, they forgot how to use their wings in interesting ways. I want answers, and if the best the developers can come up with is they forgot, that's stupid. I think that's lazy and boring. That is objectively not good storytelling or characterization. Not to say that's what they'll do, but I have a feeling. So when you give a character a really cool physical characteristic like wings, it's generally a good idea to have a really good reason for why they can't use them. You know, so it makes sense. For example, in the My Little Pony, bear with me. In the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1 episode Fall Weather Friends, Earth Pony Applejack and Pegasus Rainbow Dash are engaging in a little bit of friendly competition over a game of horseshoes. After Applejack beats Rainbow Dash and Rainbow Dash is a sore loser about it,
I hate losing.
Rainbow Dash challenges Applejack to an Iron Pony competition to see who's the better athlete. Following a series of events to showcase both Applejack and Rainbow Dash's athletic prowess, Rainbow Dash uses her wings to gain the upper hand, or hoof in this case, in the final 4 events. Rainbow Dash is crowned the Iron Pony, and Applejack accuses her of cheating. After arguing about Rainbow Dash's use of her own wings, Applejack challenges Rainbow Dash to the annual running of the Leaves race, very specifically stating that she cannot use her wings. On the day of the race, Rainbow Dash's wings are physically bound to her because she said she could do the race with her wings tied behind her back, and Applejack obliged. During the race, bad sportsmanship and cartoon hijinks ensue as Applejack and Rainbow Dash sabotage each other multiple times. They both then tie for last place. And then the governing body of Equestria shows up and tells Applejack and Rainbow Dash that they did a poor job getting the leaves to fall from the trees, and they both learn a lesson of doing things in good fun and not letting things get to them. But here's the thing. Rainbow Dash's whole character is that she goes fast. Like really fast. She loves flying, and she loves flying really fast. She even got her cutie mark, that is her special interest tramp stamp, from flying so fast that she broke the sound barrier. And that's not even the only example I can think of. There's even another episode that involves Rainbow Dash not being able to use her wings. In the Season 2 episode, Read It and Weep, she ends up in the hospital. I'm not going to tell you the episode synopsis because I can tell I put some of you through too much, and also because she ended up in the hospital. In both of these episodes, Rainbow Dash is prevented from doing something that she loves and is normally very capable of doing. Also, you can't bully me for liking this show because I was the target demographic. Yes, I was a horse girl. Yes, I still am. Get your sticky little fingers off of your keyboard. And there are other examples of winged characters in media not found in children's horse girl cartoons that I can think of, like Dame Aylin from Baldur's Gate 3 and Gabrielle ULTRAKILL from ULTRAKILL. Spoilers for both of these games if that matters to you. Both of these characters are angels, or are essentially angels. Dame Aylin is an Aasimar, which in the Dungeons & Dragons universe is the child of a god. She specifically is the daughter of the moon goddess Selûne. Gabrielle ULTRAKILL is the angel Gabriel, or Gabriel from the Bible. Angels are depicted with at least one set of wings, unless they're using a disguise like in some TV show I've never seen, or they haven't earned them like Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life. But most of the time, they do in fact have wings. That being said, both Dame Aylin and Gabrielle ULTRAKILL have had their wings disappear due to being underpowered or personal reasons. When Dame Aylin is trapped in the Shadowfell, she's imprisoned by the weirdo Balthazar and being used as a battery for Ketheric Thorm's immortality. If you save her, she instantaneously gets her powers and wings back and leaves using her wings, wreaking divine havoc on the Shadowlands. Thank God. Just leave Revendreth alone, thanks. Now, in tabletop D&D, you can play as an Aasimar and summon your wings for 10 combat rounds. That's 1 minute, once per long rest. Kind of like a cooldown in World of Warcraft. Wow, crazy. Can you fly with those wings? It depends on the dungeon master. I can imagine that most would say no, because of a whole nother can of worms. But sometimes things that are the rules are worse. Become ungovernable. Gabriel ULTRAKILL's wings disappear after you defeat him at the ends of Act 1 and 2. No Act 3 yet, and after getting him to half health in the Act 1 fight, but they reappear very soon after while he's monologuing at you. In the Act 1 epilogue, when Gabriel is being punished by the Council, the artwork depicts him with his wings visible. In the Act 2 epilogue, while he's contemplating by a fire and killing the Council members, his wings are sheathed. But when he presents the council member's head to the citizens of heaven, his wings are visible and much more grand in appearance than in the Act 1 epilogue, emphasizing his brutal display of power. For Gabriel, not using his wings is based on convenience or an emotional state like shock, rather than a lack of inner or outer power. Especially since the light of God was ripped from his body in the Act 1 epilogue. But these characters are angels. They have so much more power than a regular person, or even a regular super soldier. Gabriel's Act 1 fight is such a sudden spike in difficulty when you first play ULTRAKILL. It took me at least an hour and more than 200 restarts to defeat him for the very first time. Granted, I was mostly using the nail gun because my brother told me he's weak to nails, which he is, but I don't know what I was thinking. It was January of 2022, what can I say? I was a different person. But you don't kill Gabriel, you defeat him. He gets back up and fucks off until the next act comes out. Dame Aylin is the same way. She gets sacrificed by Azafrán and comes back. She gets downed in combat and gets back up. She can only truly die if she's killed with a very special, oversized toothpick. Tenacious little beasts, aren't they? Out of all three of these characters, you, as a dracthyr, have more in common with Rainbow Dash, because you're gay. She isn't a divine being enacting the will of God, she's just a very athletic pony with ADHD who loves her friends. This is a weird video, isn't it? I'm sorry. But also, no, I'm not. You could be a little snot and say, the World of Warcraft player character is always dying and coming back to life. Speak for yourself. Skill issue. You will never be like them. Now take your horse and get out of my sight. And if you put her into a jar, I will fucking kill you. But, Kiwa, I hear you say, what about V1? It has wings, and it can't fly. Does it though? V1 is who you, the player, play as in ULTRAKILL. You never see V1 in normal gameplay, but you do see V2, your counterpart and rival that you meet in the final levels of both the first and fourth layers of Hell. In V2's terminal data, the previous version, you, was, is, will be, built for war. After all wars were ended, V2 was made for peace. But no one wanted or needed either of these machines, so production stopped and now it's just you two. Well, scratch that. It's just you. You know, after you murdered it. Nothing is ever said about the wings in-game. V2's first terminal data states it's lore, and that the only difference between these models is the armor plating. V1 has thin plate to absorb blood, and V2 has thick plate for durability. V2's second terminal data just describes how inferior and angry it feels while it scrapes together a new arm after you took the old one following its defeat in the first encounter. In the cover art for the game, though, we can see weapons on V1's wings. ULTRAKILL is a retro shooter, taking inspiration from games like Doom and Quake with intense action, high mobility, and lots of weapon swapping. It makes sense that V1, as a machine of war, has a built-in place to put all of the weapons it collects, while maintaining a sleek design for agility and maneuverability. Where does Doom Guy put all of his weapons? In his butt? As for why these weapon slots look like wings, though, I mean, it looks cool. After braving the hell on its own that the wiki is, the only things I could find about the wings were passages with 0 citations. V2's wiki page says something completely different from V1's page about the wings, saying it makes the machines look like angels, which, yeah, I can see it. but most of the edits are made about observable things in-game, are fan theory, or are obnoxious. If there are citations, they're usually linked to Twitter and Discord posts, and as much as I hate creators essentially writing lore on social media and messaging apps, it's not my story to tell. Now is probably a good time to remind you, and more importantly myself, that this is a video about dracthyr in World of Warcraft. Okay, so why do they look like wings if they aren't? I don't know, it fucking looks cool. Even if they were functionally wings, you still wouldn't be able to use them all the time because ULTRAKILL is a video game with challenges that need to be overcome. You can't have everything available to you all the time. There's a stamina bar. If you use something at your disposal at the wrong time, that's on you. Think of it like a cooldown or resource in World of Warcraft if that's your only frame of reference. V1 is also made out of steel, presumably. Minos Prime calls it a crater of steel, but he probably doesn't know much about transition metals and alloys. It's a sci-fi-esque game where you play as a robot made out of some future metal that is permeable to polar substances like blood. Specifics, schmemifics. Most metals are heavy, but Kiwa, airplanes are made of metal, and they can fly. Do you know how fast airplanes fly? Do you know how much power is needed for something that heavy to move that fast? A lot. Yes, you can move very quickly in this game, but you cannot move as fast as a real airplane from real life. V1 does not have wings and therefore cannot fly. Is it misleading that it looks like it has wings? Yes, but have you heard of the rule of cool? You definitely have if you play World of Warcraft. V1 does not have wings. They are wing-like, and the purpose they serve is to hold its weapons. And if these do become racials, who's it going to benefit? How will it affect dungeon and raid metas? Because that's all anybody cares about in this stupid fucking game. Who will it benefit? Everybody, but especially farmers. Do you know how fast a large raid like ICC would be for a dracthyr Windwalker monk to clear? Flying Serpent Kick, Chi Torpedo, Tiger's Last, Hover, and Zephyr? Babe, you're sliving. And farmers mostly do old content anyway, so this doesn't affect the people who do not care. The people who care about dungeon and raid metas could probably tell you that racial abilities that don't cleanse, like Dwarf Stoneform, or quickly get you out of a bind like Night Elf Shadow Meld, are not ever going to be meta. But what do I know or care about meta? I've stubbornly played Mistweaver Monk for nearly 10 years, and I'm not even good at it. Sure, you could be shooting yourself in the foot for not playing as a race with movement-based racial abilities on a class with limited movement abilities, but like I said, the only time and place it really matters to move quickly is farming old content for the sake of your own sanity. Sure, being a slow class sucks fighting trash in a current content raid or having to walk back after a wipe. Actually, the fault is your own for the second one. You shouldn't have released and instead waited for the healer with the soulstone to mass res everyone. Or maybe it's the warlock's fault. It's usually the warlock's fault. What's that? What about PvP? I don't know what that is. PvP is a whole nother beast that I am not qualified to handle, as if I'm qualified to handle any of this. So I'm not going to say anything. I apologize. In conclusion, winged characters should be able to use their wings because they have them. Hover, Verdant Embrace, and Rescue are immersive abilities that evoke the wing fantasy. Zephyr does too, I guess. Let me know your thoughts on this matter. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you care? Is there something else about the dracthyr you have thoughts and feelings on? Let me and others know in the comments below, and thank you for watching.